Ladies and gentlemen, as you continue to enjoy your meals and your desserts, I want to begin by telling you all I'm Dan Bishop, and I'm so grateful for you being here today. Thank you so much. We're down to the short rows, ladies and gentlemen. We've had an active campaign in this race for the 9th Congressional District, and here we are 2 weeks less 1 day, right, till September 10th. It has been an exciting campaign from beginning to end, but it's just getting as my 18-year-old or 19-year-old would say now, is getting ready to be lit. Because we're going to have a lot of events in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, and they're all designed with the purpose in mind to make sure people are aware of this important race. It's very important. It's about, because there's a great sharp contrast in this race between the two candidates who seek to be your congressman. And I seek to represent your values. I share the values of the 9th District. I'm not ashamed of the values of the 9th District, and I'm going to represent and defend the values of the 9th District. And I'll also tell you this. When I go to Washington, I'm going to stand with the President of the United States, Donald Trump. I'm grateful for the presence of everyone here today. Well, I'd like to pause one moment, though, and ask elected officials, please, to stand. If you're an elected official, please stand. Thank you all very much. Nice round of applause. I don't know if he's still in the room. I did specifically want to acknowledge the presence of Sheriff Eddie Cathy. Is Eddie in the room still? He's in the back out in the hallway out there. Nice round of applause for the sheriff. There he is. Thank you, Sheriff. In addition to being a public servant, Eddie gets about 84% of the vote around here, so he's a good luck charm, too. Thank you, Eddie. And I also wanted to acknowledge one other elected official, past elected official, I guess, but I still think of him as my boss in the Senate, and that's former Senator Tommy Tucker, right over here. Senator Tucker and Diane have been unbelievably helpful to me from the very word go. And I'm grateful for everything you've done. I'm grateful for your presence today. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm very excited. This is going to be a weird introduction because one of our guests is going to be offering comments, but both guests are going to come up here to the podium together. We're going to see how that works out. But let me say this. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest this afternoon, who probably needs no introduction to most of you, and I know you're ready to hear from them. She's a tremendous individual who I'm going to introduce, and we're lucky to have her in such a prominent role spreading the word about the tremendous successes of the Trump administration. Most of you probably know her as the sharp, quick-witted co-host of The Five on Fox News. But you have to know that before that career as a star broadcaster, she was a star prosecutor. And when she served in the San Francisco and LA District Attorney's Office, she was an award-winning prosecutor and a managing attorney of the trial division, where she prosecuted some very high-profile sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, murder, and drug cases. We could use her in Mecklenburg County. She wasn't in favor of catch and release. She was in favor of catch and incarcerate. We're living in a moment, strange as it seems to me, where we have a sheriff in Mecklenburg County who's standing up for sanctuary policy. ICE put out, if you've seen their press release, because I'm sure you've all seen a couple of notorious incidents broadcast on television news or in the newspaper. But you really, to get a full flavor of this, you need to go and look at that press release from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. There were 22 dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens on that list, all of whom were subject to administrative detainer requests by ICE. And every one of whom, in spite of that administrative detainer request, the sheriff of Mecklenburg County released that dangerous accused back into the community to prey on victims. In one of the two cases that was given a fair amount of play, it was a man who had committed or was accused of committing domestic violence and then was released, had a second incident in which he committed or was accused of committing domestic violence, including charges of strangulation and violating a domestic violence protective order. And there was a 9-hour standoff with a SWAT team, and he was let out again. And in the other cases, pretty notoriously covered, just two of these 22 with equally lurid charges. There was a man who was accused of statutory rape of a child and sexual assault of another child. And he was released back into the community in spite of a pending ICE detainer request. Kimberly Guilfoyle, as an experienced prosecutor, knows that kind of policy puts all of us in danger and has no place in America. She prosecuted dangerous criminals, she comforted crime victims, and she understands just how abhorrent those policies are. Her success as a prosecutor is testament to her fierce and fearless advocacy. And if you read her book, you know that a lot of that came from the lessons she learned in childhood from her father after losing her mother to leukemia at a young age. She's developed resiliency, and she's turned that into advocacy and strength throughout her career. So I'm very excited to introduce our special guest. She's a rock star on the campaign trail, where she spends company today in the company of our other special guest. And about him, I'm going to say simply this. One of the things I think experiences all of us in America had as we watched Donald Trump become the Republican nominee and the president is what a remarkable family he's produced. In all of its members who've shown their faces to the United States and taken a life that could be involved in many other things, focusing on their businesses, doing exactly what they want, but they've all set that aside, as has the president, to restore America. And he's in the process of doing that. By any other presidency standard, this would be the point in time when it became evident that the president was on his way to a 49-state landslide for re-election. But in the United States today, we have politics we've never seen before. And in the president, we have a fighter like we've never seen before. I'm grateful for him every day. And one very important reason I'm running for Congress is to go to Washington to help President Trump. I'm grateful for the support of Don Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle, and without further ado, please welcome them. Thank you very much.
He's so hired, right? He's good. He's very good. I was like, Don, come on.
That's better than I do for the introduction. I'm usually,
Don goes, oh, here's Princess. But it is so fantastic to be here, right, in North Carolina. We love this state. I was telling him earlier, North Carolina is Trump country. And come special election, it's going to be Bishop country, too. We are here because this is a very important election to North Carolina, to the country, and to the president. And we really love that Dan had the courage and strength to take this election on during tough times and say, hey, listen, I'm going to step up and be there for the president, because he gets it. And he does represent the values of North Carolina and of the 9th District, and he represents the values of America, of the American dream, of the preservation of liberty, of freedom, of protection of constitutional rights. And I love that Dan is pro-life, pro-gun, Second Amendment, right, and pro-wall. We're going to get it done. We're going to build the wall. And Don Jr. and I went down there recently, and the wall is getting built, indeed. And it's just another example of promises made and promises kept by the President of the United States. But what we want to do is we want to send some reinforcements, right? Some good men and women there to Washington, D.C. to make sure that the President has strong, smart, principled soldiers fighting with him, holding the front line to protect and preserve the American dream. And he is the best choice for the job. I understand we got a few nicknames going back and forth in North Carolina. That other guy, what is it, McCready, something like that? Yeah. I heard he's real low energy. Yeah. But I'll tell you what I like. I like better good Dan and bad Dan. That's easy to remember, right? Good versus bad. One is good for North Carolina. One is good for the president. One is good for America. And I love the turnout here because it shows me that you understand the importance and how imperative it is that Dan is elected in this special election. You know, these are not easy elections when you have them, but I think you can see both of us are here. The president is in full support, and it is so important that you all reach out and tap a couple friends or quasi-friends or frenemies, whoever it is, to get them to come out and vote and to support Dan, because he's exceptional in every way. And much like the president and Don Jr. and his family, he could be doing a lot of other different things with his life. But he chose to have skin in the game. He chose to get involved, right? Much like myself, was at Fox News, fighting in the playground with Juan Williams every day. Yeah, I don't know. I had to hook up with a guy
Now
who
she
could
just
take
yells
it.
at me all day long.
Now I just play with Junior all day. Yeah, Juan Williams. They said Juan said that you're being too hard on him, and you're too tough on him. I was like, what? I'm gonna go with some people that like a tough fighter and a winner. But yeah, they go by mistake into my ice cream. I was like, I don't think so. And instead I'm like, first generation American, my mother born in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, my father in Ireland. I am the product, a living, breathing example of the American dream and what hard work and equality of opportunity can do for hardworking Americans. That's why I love to do this and to fight. And it is such an honor and pleasure to be a senior advisor to the President of the United States. And I just want to go for a moment to say, some of the same exact values that I admire and respect in the president, who I've known for 13 years, and Don too, and I know Don better than his dad. Dan Bishop has those same qualities, okay? That's what we're looking for in this country, leaders and fighters. And I think you guys have seen what happens when you have, say, one person, even in Congress, that can create such a mess that doesn't represent the values of this country. They want to fundamentally change the United States of America into something that you do not recognize. Their goal, their aim is Venezuela, okay? Socialism bordering on communism, and that is not going to happen, not under Dan Bishop and not under President Trump. And you need a fighter and someone's not afraid to get in there and get after it and stand for what we believe in, for the future generations of Americans, for the hardworking men and women that this family stands for, that Dan Bishop stands for, across this country, that were forgotten, that were taken for granted, and quite frankly, taken advantage of. The reckless tax and spend, Democrats that are in D.C., well, President Trump is draining that swamp, and we need Dan Bishop to drain the swamp in North Carolina, because that other character is pretty swampy, isn't he? I don't know what's going on with him, but check it out. He's got a few issues. But, this is really great to be here in this state. We hope also that y'all turn up big time for President Trump for the election. But let's act like he is on the ballot right there fighting shoulder to shoulder with Dan Bishop in this special election. And, I've had the privilege of campaigning with Don, and we were in midterm elections, like 70 plus rallies. And it's funny because he said recently he recognizes that he's a lot, more like his father than he thought. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. High energy, never stops, can take about like 77,000 punches and get right back up and hit them harder. And that's what you need, and President Trump has restored that resolve and our fortitude, standing up to other, countries, making sure that, we really do protect and preserve the American dollar. And Don's out there, he's a businessman as well, like his father, and with a love of tweeting. Exactly. In fact, his dad thinks he's a bigger, tweeter, crazier than it, which is pretty funny, right? At the White House, it's like, Don, I'm watching CNN, and I see, Donald Trump Jr. tweeting something, and he goes, what are you doing? You gotta slow down. You gotta slow down. I'm just too aggressive. And Don goes, what did you say, baby?
Yeah, no.
Me? He's like, me? Yeah, it's pretty funny. But anyway, it was good stuff. So, thing is, the president really does love North Carolina. We know it's Trump country, it's Bishop country, and Don Jr. loves it here, has a lot of friends, and has spent time in this state. We both have, and we just can't even say how honored and privileged we are to be in the fight right here, side by side with you, and we certainly appreciate, debt of gratitude that you're this dedicated and focused for an important battle, and we're just getting started. And this guy is the best out on the road and in the field. Unbelievable. The base gets him. He loves them. A real outdoorsman and a big fan of your state, Don Jr.
See, I just got a kiss on the lips from a campaign person. So hopefully there's no scandal that ensues from all of that. But well, come on, baby. This is the Me Too generation. Me Too. That's it. It's over. My life's ruined. So hopefully Kimberly will not be pressing charges on that one. So I better build her up really good right now and just and thank her for the glowing introduction. It's never fun to follow Kimberly because she is so eloquent, well-spoken, has an incredible story, a track record of success. Me, I'm mostly good when you need a wrecking ball. When you want subtle and nuanced, Kimberly. She can also do wrecking ball, by the way, as you all know. But, me, I'm more of a one-trick pony. But it is great to be back here in North Carolina. I spent a lot of time in the state. Some good friends of mine in the room. I'm not going to call them out by name because I would destroy my reputation for being associated with them. Or theirs, one way or the other. I don't know 100%. What do you think, Chess? But it is great to be back out here. Look forward to coming back during hunting season. And then the other bigger season, which will be 2020 after this election. So Dan, thank you very much for having us down here today. For all of you, thank you for turning up. I think you understand and recognize the importance of what these things are. And while the special elections are often tough, we need more people who are willing to fight. I think if there's one thing that my father's been able to show conservatives in general, who have a history of the last few decades of being masters at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, for simply not being willing to engage, for taking the loss simply because the other side wants you to, not because the facts would dictate it. We've shown that you don't have to do that. For the first time in modern history, you have a president that's actually delivering on the promises made on the campaign trail. Think about that. Now, but think about that. That is the anomaly. That is unusual. He gets hell for doing all of the things you elected him to do. All right? Imagine the media, what I call the marketing division of the DNC, the mainstream media. Imagine they held candidates accountable for not doing any of the things they said they were going to do, because that has become the norm. So, we're here to prove that we can keep winning, that we can keep fighting, that we can keep instilling American values for Americans, for the people of North Carolina, because those are things we hold dear. As Americans, as patriots, as parents and grandparents, Those are the things we want to make sure exist for those kids, for those grandkids. And that's why we need guys like Dan in Congress, people who are willing to stand up to that. Not people like he's running against, who are getting support from, what I call the Hamas wing of Congress, and the squad. No, think about it. Perpetuating socialist values and policies. Guess what, guys? I get that I'm the son of a rich guy from New York City. I'm not allowed to have an opinion anymore in America. No, we're not. It's terrible. I can have an opinion, let alone express it. It's a big no-no. I get it. But, I'm also from an interesting family. My mother is actually an immigrant. My mother is someone who escaped communism in Eastern Europe. She was able to do that because she was a good athlete. She came to America and did so legally. Shocking. But I also had the good fortune of having a grandfather that had some foresight. This is someone who grew up, he was a blue-collar electrician from what was then communist Czechoslovakia. He's a big part of my life growing up. He's the guy that got me into the outdoors. All of the stuff that probably kept me pretty balanced growing up in, an otherwise relatively crazy lifestyle. He made sure that I saw that as a young kid. So I spoke the language fluently, and from the age of about 5 or 6 years old, I spent about 6 weeks every summer in what was then communist Czechoslovakia, growing up and seeing that. And what's interesting to me, as someone who has seen it, who has seen bread lines, who's seen poverty that way, who's seen people totally disincentivized from working hard because there was no benefit to it, because everything was shared equally. What's really interesting to me is, why are there no people in Congress or otherwise advocating for these socialist and communist policies who've actually lived under socialism or communism? No, I'm serious. I know it's all the rage, and the media's done a great job of selling it, and Bernie loves the idea. Why is there no one in America from Venezuela right now preaching socialism? How about the former Soviet Union? How about Eastern Europe? Not one. I can't name it, can you? Not one. Because those systems have done nothing but destroy the countries they've been implemented in. Okay? And it's easy to sell it. Everything's for free. Well, guys, nothing's for free. We all know that. But that's what we're up against. When you're promising everyone everything for free and there's no consequence and there's no anything, that is the system that we're growing up in. So we need people who are willing to go to D.C., who are willing to step up, who are willing to fight, who don't need this job. Just like my father doesn't need this job. Right? That was, right? Oh yeah, he's doing it for Mother Russia. Really? I don't know. He could have done nothing. He could have done nothing and had a pretty good life. But the words that my father said to me on June 16th, 2015, as we're getting in that elevator, resound even more 3 years later after the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the American people. When he looked at me and said, "Now we find out who our real friends are." It wasn't just the statement that really resounded, because, my dad gets it. He understands life. He understands how it really works. He doesn't look at things through the sort of rose-colored glasses, the way we'd love the world to actually work, but it doesn't. He's a realist and a pragmatist. He understands. What was more important about that statement was he recognized what would happen. He recognized that those who'd been around him for years would kind of brush that off, right? It was like on November 9th, 2016, the day after the election day, when I woke up to 10,000 unread emails. Hey, buddy! Hey, buddy! We were with you all along. Oh, really? Strange. You're with me all along. You haven't taken my call in I don't know, 18 months? You weren't really with you all along, but that's how the world works, right? Most people aren't willing to step up. Most people aren't willing to take that incoming. Most people, for them, going through this is the natural progression. Well, for my father, he didn't need to do any of those things, but he stepped up because it was the right thing to do. He stepped up because as a man, you can only throw stones from the sidelines for so long before you actually have to get in the game. That's what you do. Look at the pinned tweet on my infamous Twitter profile, as Kid Burley would like to point out. It's my father on Oprah in the mid-'80s talking exactly about the things he's actually implementing today. He hasn't actually changed one bit. It's the same things. Back then it was trade policy. Then it was mostly Japan taking advantage of it. Now it's China. But the same holds true. But that's why we need more people who are in there, who are willing to fight, who are willing to step up, who are willing to take that criticism, who are able to weather that storm. That's why I'm doing it. Because again, as the father of 5 young kids, and yeah, I saw that look. I know how that happens now, so. Yeah, got a new hobby, cable package, problem solved. But now that I have 5 kids, I gotta actually deal with this stuff. So we gotta make sure, that we're getting this country on the right track again. That the things that made America the greatest nation in the world, that those values, work ethic and otherwise, still exist for that next generation. Because man, it feels like they're doing whatever they can to get rid of those things. And man, I don't even want to think about their future when that happens. So I really appreciate all of you being here for this. Please make sure to take that time. If I can sort of step away from my life for a few years to be able to do that, you guys can all pick up the phone, call some friends, make sure they turn up and vote. Okay, the special elections sort of sneak by people. The other side is motivated by nothing other than hate. But hate is a powerful motivator. Okay, right? The facts don't exactly work on their side, right? I've done this. I go to college campuses all the time. We hate Trump, yada, 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 usual. Okay. Name one economic metric where you are not better off today than you were 3 years ago. No. You can yell all you can do like the Bernie like crazy hand gesture thing, like it's like little you know what I'm talking about. You see the speed bag thing yesterday? I mean, like,
Post it again.
I posted it so you can find it there, but yeah. This didn't exactly, imagine being President Xi of China and seeing that video, and then you're sitting across the negotiation table from Bernie, like you're laughing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this does not exactly strike fear into the hearts and minds of our enemies and adversaries, right? This would only encourage them to attack America further, but I digress. It's almost as bad as, Joe Biden. Joe Biden's, his number one line, well, government has failed you. I go, wow. I agree with Joe, by the way, on this one. I agree with Joe. The only problem is, hey, Joe, you've kind of been doing this for 50 years.
Yeah.
And that's not like Trump hyperbole 50 years. I mean, actually doing it for 50 years in D.C. Like, you may not want to run with that. Like, if I'm agreeing with you, it's not because it's good, it's because you're right, and you don't even understand at this point that that's a problem for you.
You built that, Joe, right? Yeah.
But again, when the media is your marketing arm, it's easy to get away with those things. But it's not just the economy. Right? Look, what about foreign policy? Okay? Israel embassy moved to its rightful home. Something that's been talked about for decades. For decades. Every president, sure, we're going to do that. It passed the United States Senate 99-0. Someone was sick that day. You would think that, according to the media, if this was going to be the start, and you guys remember this, also not hyperbole, the start of World War III.
Oh, here we go.
Moving an embassy to Jerusalem. Start of World War III, correct? And billions, not millions, billions of people were going to die, correct? I mean, you would think that if those two things were going to be the effect, that it wouldn't pass the United States Senate 99-0, right? You'd think there'd be someone that would be a voice of reason. So what actually happened? No, that's not true. See, I would say nothing, because that would be accurate, except for in the eyes of the media, what actually happened is 2 people threw rocks for about 13.25 seconds. And it was over. So nothing didn't really happen, but essentially nothing. But if I say nothing, they'll say I'm lying, and so it's just not worth dealing with it. But what really happened was the rest of the world watched as America regained its rightful place as the leader of the free world, where we got our resolve, where if we set a red line, it actually meant something. What about North Korea? Right? We're having talks. They're making progress. They're having meetings. Media's going crazy. I love watching these pundits. Donald Trump's going about it all wrong in North Korea. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, and how would you know? Well, and I know because I've been leading the U.S. delegation for the last 40 years. I go, interesting. Much like Joe Biden bragging about his history for 50 years while also having simultaneously failed you as government. I go, that's sort of weird. You've been leading the charge for 40 years. You haven't even had a meeting with the other guy. I always say, I don't know, some of you have maybe seen my 5-year-old daughter Chloe on Instagram. I go, my daughter Chloe is as accomplished. No, she is. She's as accomplished as this, expert. He hasn't been right in 40 years, but minor details. I go, she is as accomplished as this quote-unquote expert who's talking we're doing it all wrong. Well, maybe you've been doing it all wrong because you've been doing the same thing over and over again for 40, Einstein's definition of insanity, right? Same thing over and over, expecting a different result for 40 years, maybe longer. I mean, think about that. So we break it up. Now we're actually having meetings. We're making progress. This is a winning track record that we need to perpetuate. Okay? It's why we need more people who are willing to fight. It's why I need you out there fighting for Dan, not his opponent, who can miraculously get in there with the backing of the squad and the crazy train that's out there. We need people who have some common sense because the only thing not common in DC right now is common sense. We need to bring that back in there. We need to get Dan in there. We need to fight to preserve North Carolina. This is going to be a big state for us in 2020. So we need you guys to stay involved. We need you all to stay motivated. I love that you see this, in the middle of the week for a lunch to get this kind of turnout is incredible. But we need you to call your friends. We need you to do the same, both in what is it, about 10 days? 10th? Yeah, a little more? 13th, okay. So 2 weeks.
And he's good at math.
That's that many more. You should each be able to make at least 20,000 calls in that amount of time, okay? Each. I don't care if there's some overlap, just do it. Okay, we all make sacrifices. My sacrifice is I have to travel the country with Kimberly. Okay? And I am willing to do that because I am a patriot. Okay? All the men in the room are going, this guy's an idiot. He's going to pay later, but it was worth it. We got to laugh. Just watch what the press does with that one. It'll be such a dishonest statement. But anywho, you know where I'm going. We need your help. We need you out there. We appreciate all of the support thus far, but stay in the game, stay engaged, and when we do, we can win. And we will win, and we will keep this going, and we will right this ship. We will get this country back on the right track. A lot has been done, but a lot more is still ahead of us. And we can do that, and we're going to do that. Dan, thank you so much for having us here. Good luck with everything. Let us know how we can help, and congratulations. Thank you very much, North Carolina. Thank you. We'll make sure everyone's aware. Okay. We'll get it out there. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, guys.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle.